My name is Natalie Brooks. I was 27 when my mother threw my Christmas stocking into the fireplace and told me I had poisoned every holiday since the day I arrived. My father shoved a garbage bag full of my clothes into my chest hard enough to knock my shoulder against the wall, then told me to get out of their house. My younger sister stood halfway down the stairs recording the whole thing for her followers, laughing while I stood there in socks with no coat and nowhere to go. What none of them knew was that the house they were throwing me out of had been mine for years. At 6:18 that morning, my mother yanked the stocking off the mantel, the one my grandmother had once embroidered for me, and tossed it into the flames like evidence she needed gone. "You have ruined every Christmas since you were born," she said, flat and clear. "We never should have kept pretending." My father, Russell Brooks, had already thrown a black contractor bag against me. "Pack your trash," he muttered, "and get out of our home." My sister, Madison Brooks, held her phone upright and grinned at her own screen. "Enjoy starting from zero," she said. "Nobody here is going to miss a parasite." I did not beg. I did not scream. I picked up the small walnut box my grandfather had placed in my hands 10 years earlier, stepped out into the snow, and drove straight to Harborstone Trust Bank. When the branch manager locked his office door and pulled down the blinds, he looked at me with a face that already knew too much. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "what your grandfather prepared for you is going to undo everything they did this morning." Before I explain how a dead man beat my family without raising his voice, let me take you back. You are listening to Dull Pain Stories. That scene at the door lasted maybe 2 minutes. The years behind it lasted my whole life. I woke up at 6:11 a.m. to cinnamon coffee. My mother only brewed it on Christmas morning. Ever since we had moved into my grandfather's house when I was 16, that smell had been part ritual, part costume. It told everyone we were the sort of family that wore matching sweaters and smiled for pictures. But under the coffee, I heard movement that did not belong to a holiday morning. Heavy boots in the upstairs hall. Slippers moving quickly. Something hard scraping over the floorboards. When I sat up, a suitcase stood open near my closet. I had not taken it out. 3 knocks landed on my bedroom door, then my mother's soft voice came through it. "Natalie, honey, get dressed. We need to talk before everyone comes down." I knew that voice. It was the voice she used when she wanted cruelty to sound private. I had heard it through the floor vent the night before while she spoke to my father in the kitchen. "Don't drag it out," she had told him. "If she starts crying, don't let her turn this around." I opened the door anyway. My mother, Paula Brooks, stepped past me with a 40-gallon black bag in her hand. She went straight to my dresser and began emptying drawers. Sweaters, socks, old t-shirts, the cardigan that had belonged to my grandmother. Everything went into the bag without folding, like the things had already stopped being mine. "Mom," I said, but my voice sounded distant even to me. "What are you doing?" She did not answer. My father stood behind her in the doorway. He was 55, shift supervisor at Great Lakes Woodworks, a man with thick hands and a talent for looking at anything except me. He had barely spoken a full sentence to me in 2 years. That morning, he stared at the wall above my shoulder as if my face was something unpaid and overdue. Then he stepped in, took the bag from my mother, and drove it into my chest. My back hit the wall. The framed family photograph beside my closet dropped from its nail and cracked against the baseboard. It was from a summer picnic 3 years before, the one where everyone said there had been no room for me in the shot. My father had hung it there himself. "Finally," he said, his voice low and dry. "Grab your things and get out of our house." My mother moved between us, not because she wanted to protect me. Her eyes had sharpened because my father had acted before she had staged the next line. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the stairs. The living room looked like it had been dressed for a commercial. The tree was almost 9 feet tall, a fir covered in old glass bulbs my grandfather had saved since the mid-70s. Snow pressed white against the big front window. The fire was already burning. On the mantel hung 4 stockings: Paula, Russell, Madison, Blake. Blake Ramsey was my sister's boyfriend. He had lived there for 6 weeks. He already had a stocking in that house. Mine was beside them until my mother reached up and tore it down. It was cream-colored wool, stitched with my name in blue thread. My grandmother, Elaine Bennett, had made it before I could read. My mother balled it in her hand, turned to the hearth, and threw it into the fire. The wool caught slowly at first, then the lining flashed. For half a second, the smoke smelled like old fabric and cedar drawers. Then it smelled chemical and wrong. My mother faced me as my name burned behind her. "You have been the problem in this family since the beginning," she said. "We are done carrying you." What surprised me was that I was not surprised. A part of me had been waiting for her to say it plainly. She had been saying it crookedly for 27 years. She had finally found a holiday bright enough to perform it. Madison came down the stairs with her phone already recording. She was 23, with a few dozen thousand followers on a short video app and a habit of treating every wound in the house like potential content. She was looking at herself in the screen, checking her angle while my father opened the front door. "Guys, this is actually happening," she whispered to the camera. "Family reset day." My mother shoved the trash bag back toward me. My father stood by the open door. Cold air rolled across the floor and climbed under my pajama pants. I had no shoes on. Just wool socks, the ones I had worn to bed. Madison turned the phone toward my face and laughed. "Good luck rebuilding your sad little life," she said. "Nobody in this family needs dead weight." I looked at the bottom stair. The walnut box was there. I had carried it down after midnight without knowing why. Maybe my body understood the morning before my mind did. I picked it up by both sides and stepped outside. The snow swallowed my socks to the ankle before I reached my car. I shut the driver's door quietly, the way my grandfather had taught me to close cabinet doors when I was 9. All the way, without a slam. They mistook quiet for emptiness. My grandfather had taught me it could be a tool. His name was Arthur Bennett. He was born in 1948 and spent more than 4 decades building cabinets out of a narrow shop on Cedar Alley in Bayfield, Wisconsin. His workshop smelled of pine shavings, varnish, and coffee that had been reheated too many times. He wore the same leather apron for as long as I knew him. A crescent-shaped burn marked the left pocket from a strip of maple that had jumped off a lathe years before. He never patched it. He said a scar on an apron meant the apron had done its job. When I was 9, my mother started leaving me at his shop after school. Madison was 6 and already in dance, voice lessons, and a gifted art program my mother spoke about as if she had discovered a royal bloodline. I had no activities. I had Grandpa. He would meet us at the shop door, lift my backpack from my shoulder and say, "Come on, Nat, we've got work." Not to my mother, to me. He gave me scraps of pine and sheets of sandpaper. "Follow the grain," he would say. "Don't fight the board. Learn what direction it's trying to go." I sanded beside him for years, through afternoons, summers, and the long seasons when home felt like a room where everyone had agreed not to see me. My grandmother died in July of 2016. Elaine Bennett collapsed in the laundry room while folding towels. My mother decided we should move in to help Dad adjust. My father did not question it. He had just taken a different position at Great Lakes Woodworks, and they sold our small ranch house in Willow Creek for $196,000. Grandpa's house had 4 bedrooms. He had built it himself in 1974 on Maple Hollow Lane, a white house with a deep porch and floors he had laid board by board. He gave up his downstairs office so Madison and I could share it for a while. He moved his drawing table into the corner and told me the room had better light anyway. I was 16. The first night in that house, I heard my mother speaking in the hall outside the kitchen. "Just be patient," she told my father. "He's nearly 70. We only have to wait a few more years." Even at 16, I knew that was a sentence people should not say about someone who had just buried his wife. I turned toward the wall. Later, when I got up for water, Grandpa was standing in the hallway in gray flannel pajama pants, a glass in his hand. He had heard her too. Maybe he had been standing there the entire time. He did not say anything. He simply moved aside so I could pass. The next morning, he asked if I could come work with him every Sunday. I went every Sunday until the week before he died. On those Sundays, he taught me the little rules nobody else thought I deserved to learn. How to keep a blade sharp without rushing. How to mark twice before cutting once. How to hear the difference between a board that was splitting and one that was simply settling. He never made speeches about love. He handed me tools with the handle turned toward my palm, and somehow that said more than anyone in the house ever did. The first time I understood that he saw everything was at a 4th of July cookout in 2017. My mother misplaced a bracelet, a thin silver chain she had bought at a craft fair, and in front of 14 relatives she announced that I must have taken it. I said, "I didn't touch it." She crossed the patio and slapped me hard enough that the sound stopped every conversation. Madison giggled behind her lemonade. My father bent down and pretended to adjust the cooler. Grandpa came over from the grill, set his hand between my shoulder blades, and guided me into the kitchen. He wrapped ice in a towel and held it against my cheek. After a minute, he said quietly, "Don't give her tears where she can spend them, save everything." The next day, he called me into the shop. A walnut box sat on the workbench. It was about 14 inches long, 9 inches wide, and 6 inches high, with dovetailed corners and a slim band of cherry wood inlaid around the lid. He had burned words into the top with his old soldering iron, for Natalie. Ob. 2017. He lifted it with both hands and held it out as if it were alive. "Don't open it yet," he said. "Just keep it with you, any day, any hour, any reason." So I did. I kept that box at the bottom of a suitcase for 10 years. I moved it from closet to closet, room to room, but I never opened it. Not once. Every Christmas Eve from the time I was 13 until his last year, Grandpa invented a reason to take me out to the shop. We cleaned clamps. We swept sawdust. We sharpened chisels. He called it putting the year away. I thought it was just our tradition. Later, I understood he was keeping me out of the kitchen, out of my mother's reach, out of whatever accusation she might need to finish the day. Every Christmas, she found one anyway. At 10, I had dropped a glass ornament. At 14, I had forgotten to stir the cider. At 18, I looked sullen in a photo. At 22, I brought the wrong pie. Each year had a new charge and the same verdict. "You ruin every Christmas." She said it the way other people said the snow is coming. Grandpa got sick in late August of 2025. Liver cancer, fast and mean. He died in November at 77. At the reception after the funeral, my mother cried with one hand pressed to her chest, while neighbors took turns saying how hard this must be for her. She accepted sympathy like rent she was owed. While she did it, I watched her eyes drift to the built-in cabinet beside the dining room, where Grandpa had kept his good bourbon and folders with important papers. She looked at it like someone looking at a locked desk she expected to inherit. She was already counting. There is a kind of accounting that families like mine do. From outside, it looks normal. One daughter gets private school because she is sensitive. One daughter gets braces because her smile matters for confidence. One daughter gets a better bedroom because she needs space to create. Inside the family, the numbers are easier. One child is an investment, the other child is an expense. Madison attended Harbor Ridge Preparatory from 6th grade through graduation. Tuition was $27,500 a year by the time she finished. She never worked a summer job. My mother said Madison had promise. I went to public school. At 17, when I asked if there would be help for college, my mother folded her hands and put on the gentle voice she used for cruelty. "Sweetheart, you're practical, not academic. Community college could be fine if you can pay your part." I paid my part. I worked nights at the Driftwood Grill and took classes at North Shore Technical College. I earned an associate degree in horticulture and graduated with $13,900 in loans under my own name. After that, I stopped asking. I learned to budget by writing numbers on envelopes. Gas, tuition, lunch, phone, loan interest. If an envelope was empty, that part of my life became quiet until the next paycheck. My mother called that discipline when she bragged to friends about me. At home, she called it proof that I did not need help. What I did not know then, what I would not learn until I walked into Harborstone Trust, was that money had existed for me the whole time. It had simply been redirected before I could see it. 2 summers before that Christmas, Madison borrowed my car to film a sunset video at Apostle Ridge and scraped the driver's side against a stone wall. The repair estimate came to $2,150. My mother called me to the kitchen and set the invoice beside a tin of Christmas cookies, as if sugar could soften theft. "Honey," she said, all warmth and teeth, "your sister's work is finally gaining momentum. We have to support the person in the family who is building something. You're dependable. Can you handle this one?" I paid the bill. 2 weeks later, Madison bought a new tablet for $1,350 with sponsorship money she had not mentioned. She opened the box in front of me while making iced coffee. She did not thank me for the car repair because she did not know my mother had made me cover it. Or maybe she did and preferred not to ask. By early December of 2026, my mother had changed her social profile banner to a new season for the Brooks family. It received more than 200 likes. She ran a public page called Grace at Home with Paula, where she posted kitchen prayers, decorating tips, and small essays about gratitude. Women from her church thought she was gentle. They met in our kitchen on Tuesdays. That same week, Madison's boyfriend moved in. Blake Ramsey was 25, a fitness creator with around 40,000 followers and no visible job outside filming himself drinking protein shakes. He took over Grandpa's old reading room, the one with blue wallpaper where Grandpa had taught me cribbage. Within 3 days, Blake painted it charcoal gray. "Don't take this wrong," he told me, holding a roller, "but your whole vibe doesn't fit what we're turning this house into." I said nothing. I went upstairs. On Christmas Eve, close to midnight, I came down for water and heard my parents in the kitchen without lights on. "After tomorrow," my mother said, "it will finally be just us, our actual family." My father rinsed a beer glass and set it upside down on a towel. He walked past the stairs without noticing me. He never argued with her, not when it mattered. I went back to my room and pulled the walnut box from the back of the closet. I set it on my nightstand and traced the burned letters on the lid. For Natalie. Ob, 2017, I still did not open it. I slept less than 5 hours. Then the morning happened. After I left the house, I drove west on County Road K with the heater blasting, the trash bag of clothes in the passenger seat, and the walnut box resting on my lap whenever the road was smooth enough. My socks were soaked by the time I reached town. My feet burned from cold. My chest hurt where the bag had hit me. At 8:57 a.m., I pulled into the lot of a 24-hour grocery store off Lakeview Avenue. The lot was almost empty, Christmas morning. A row of carts sat frozen together near the entrance. I parked at the far edge and turned off the car. Harborstone Trust opened at 9. I put the walnut box across my knees. The lid was tight from age. I had to press the heel of my hand under the lip and push until it gave. The smell inside rose slowly, like an old drawer opening after years. Cedar, paper, a faint dry sweetness from the wood. There were 4 things in the box. The first was a brass house key darker with age than any key on my ring. A leather tag hung from it. On the tag in Grandpa's handwriting were the words, "Front door 1974. The second was a folded piece of yellow paper no bigger than a receipt. In pencil he had written any day, any hour, any reason. The third was a business card. Harborstone Trust Bank, Bayfield, Wisconsin. Martin Hayes, branch manager. On the back was a number, 904,118, and one sentence in Grandpa's hand. "Tell Martin you are my granddaughter. He will know." The fourth was a photograph. Black and white, 4x6, curled at the corners. Grandpa stood in the orchard behind the house, younger than I remembered him, holding a baby wrapped in a pale knitted blanket. On the back, April 6, 1999. Maple Hollow. First morning home. That was the day after I was born. I had never seen the picture. I sat in the empty parking lot with the engine ticking and snow gathering on the windshield, and I cried for the first time that morning. Not loudly. I have never been loud, but I cried for 2 minutes with the photograph in my hands. Then I put everything back, started the car, and called my mother. My number was blocked. I called my father. No answer. I called Jenna Price, the only friend from the flower shop I had not slowly lost. She was visiting cousins in Arizona. She answered with children shouting in the background. "Nat, are you okay?" "Yes," I lied. "I'll call you tomorrow." Then I drove to Harborstone Trust. The bank stood on Harbor Avenue between a bakery and an antique bookstore in a brick building from 1912. The brass handle on the front door had been polished by generations of palms. Inside, the lobby was warm and quiet. Old marble floors, a fake little Christmas tree near the teller line, a candle somewhere smelled faintly of orange and clove. A teller in her 50s looked up when I crossed the lobby in wool socks, gray sweater, and no coat. Her eyes paused at the bruise rising near my collarbone, but her face did not change. I respected that. I set the business card on the counter. "My grandfather gave me this," I said. "He told me to come here if I ever needed to." She turned the card over. She read the back, then she picked up the phone, pressed one button, and spoke quietly. "She's here," she hung up. "Mr. Hayes will come out for you himself. Would you like water?" I nodded. Less than a minute later, a man in his early 60s stepped from an office at the rear of the lobby. He wore a brown cardigan with worn elbows. Grandpa had owned one almost exactly like it. The man stopped a few feet away and said, "Ms. Brooks." It was not a question. "Please come with me," he said. "Bring the box." I had not shown him the box. It was inside a canvas tote against my hip. He had not looked at it. He simply turned and walked as if a script written years ago had finally reached his line. His office held a walnut desk I recognized immediately. Grandpa had built it. On the wall was a framed photograph of two men on a dock at Lake Crescent, holding fishing poles and squinting into sun. One was Martin Hayes, 20 years younger. The other was Arthur Bennett. Martin closed the office door, locked it, and lowered the blinds. Then he sat across from me and folded his hands on the desk my grandfather had made. "Your grandfather has been waiting for this day since 2017, he said. "I have been waiting with him." He opened a lower drawer and lifted out a dark green folder, worn at the corners. Across the front, in Grandpa's handwriting, "For Natalie. Hold until she comes." Martin set it between us. Then he placed a thick manila envelope beside it. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "sit down. What I am about to show you will change what your family thinks happened this morning. Your grandfather did not just leave you comfort, he left you paperwork." My knees felt loose. I sat. "Open the box," he said gently. "Let me see it." I placed the walnut box on the desk and raised the lid. Martin looked at the key first. His face softened. "He carried that key every day for 46 years, he said. "In 2017, he made a copy for the bank file and kept the original for you. He told me that when you walked in with that key, I was to stop whatever I was doing, bring you here, close the door, and tell you the truth." He set the key in the center of the desk. "That is the front door key to 742 Maple Hollow Lane," he said. "Your house." The room tilted so sharply I reached for the edge of the chair. Martin noticed and waited. He did not fill the silence. When I could breathe again, he opened the green folder to the first page. The heading read, "Bennett Family Revocable Living Trust. Settlor, Arthur James Bennett. Successor trustee, Martin Paul Hayes. Sole beneficiary, Natalie June Brooks." The date was August 23, 2017, 6 weeks after my mother slapped me at the cookout. Martin walked me through the file for almost 40 minutes. He explained it in plain language, no performance, no legal fog. "In August of 2017, he said, your grandfather went to Langley and Pierce, 3 blocks from here. He asked Rebecca Langley one question, whether he could place his house beyond his daughter's reach and still live there until he died. She told him yes." He smiled faintly at the next page. He came back with a cashier's check and a carpenter's pencil because he hated the pens in law offices. Rebecca made him sign again in ink. He grumbled about that for years. The property transfer had been completed on August 24, 2017. The house no longer sat in Grandpa's personal name. It belonged to the Bennett Family Revocable Living Trust. Grandpa kept a life estate, which meant he could live there until his death. Beneath that, the title belonged to the trust. The trust beneficiary was me. "When he died on November 9, 2025, Martin said, the trust became irrevocable. The house transferred to you by operation of law. No probate, no hearing, no approval from your mother." He turned another page. "Your parents have lived in your house for 13 months without paying you $1. He let the sentence sit. Then he showed me a payable on death account opened at Harborstone Trust on February 12, 2021. Beneficiary, Natalie June Brooks. Balance at the time of Arthur Bennett's death, $92,400. "Your grandfather said that money was for the house," Martin said. "Roof, porch, gutters, furnace, whatever failed first. He didn't want you inheriting responsibility without means." He showed me a deposit ledger. Grandpa had added money every spring and autumn, usually in cash, cabinet jobs, small commissions. He had saved it quietly. The last deposit had been $5,200 in September 2025, just before his final hospital stay. The memo line read, "For the year she needs it." I had to look away. When I looked back, Martin had opened the manila envelope. It held copies of 3 incident notes printed on Harborstone letterhead and stamped with his initials. The first was dated November 18, 2025, 9 days after the funeral. Paula Brooks came to branch requesting release of father's remaining assets as next of kin. Informed that named beneficiary-controlled pod account. Left visibly upset. The second was dated April 9, 2026. Paula Brooks arrived with copy of birth certificate and requested correction of beneficiary designation. Informed designation was valid and not subject to branch reversal. Left angry. The third was dated September 17, 2026. Paula Brooks and Russell Brooks requested meeting regarding family hardship and inheritance access. Informed again that no beneficiary standing exists. Russell Brooks raised voice. Paula Brooks stated upon exit, "She doesn't even know and she has no right to know." I read that final line until the words stopped looking like words. "She came here 3 times," I said. "Yes. And nobody told me." "Your grandfather's instruction was that I was not to contact you first," Martin said. "He believed you had to come when you were ready. He was very exact about that. He also said if your mother came here more than twice, then she was likely preparing to hurt you directly." He looked at my bruised collarbone. "You came in this morning." I said nothing. He did not ask me to. The next document was an owner's title insurance policy from Superior Title Company, paid in full on August 24, 2017, premium $1,870. "This matters," Martin said. "If anyone challenges your ownership based on a defect, concealed claim, or improper transfer theory, the title company funds the defense. Your grandfather wanted obstacles removed before you even knew there would be a road." He slid one more page to me, a plain asset summary. Real property, 742 Maple Hollow Lane. Estimated current value, $386,000. Pod account, Harborstone Trust Bank. $92,400. Cabinet tools, lumber inventory, lathe and shop equipment. Estimated $31,000. 2010 blue pickup. Estimated $12,500. Approximate total, $521,900. Martin tapped the page once. "Your mother told my staff more than once that you were a burden," he said. "I am looking at $500,000 of evidence that your grandfather disagreed." Then he closed the folder. "There is one more thing, it is not in this office." He led me down a corridor to the vault. Safe deposit box 304. Martin removed the long metal drawer and set it on a small table in a private room. "I'll be just outside," he said. Inside the box were 2 things. The first was a sealed cream envelope, across the front, "For my granddaughter when you are ready to come home." The second was wrapped in soft gray flannel. I knew the fabric before I unfolded it. Grandpa had worn pajama pants made of that same flannel the night he stood in the hallway after hearing my mother count his remaining years. Inside the cloth was a small brass key on a wire ring. A recipe card was tied to it with string. On one side, Grandpa had written, "Old-fashioned, for your own kitchen." On the other side was the recipe. The key was for his liquor cabinet. I opened the envelope. The letter was 2 pages. The handwriting on the first page was steady. On the second, the lines drifted downward, the way his hands had begun to shake near the end. "Sweet Nat, if you are reading this, your mother did what I believed she would do. I am sorry I am not there to stand beside you. I could not stop every day while it was happening, but I could move ahead of her. I saw more than you knew. I saw the bracelet. I saw the room given away. I heard what she said the first night you moved in. I stayed quiet because I never wanted you to feel forced to choose between blood and truth, so I made the choice unnecessary. The house is yours. The account is yours. The proof is yours. None of it depends on her permission. You were never a weight. You were the child who came to the shop. You were the one who learned to sand with the grain. You were the only person in that house who closed doors gently. Do not apologize, do not explain. Come home. I love you, pumpkin. Grandpa, I stayed in that little vault room for a long time. When I came out, Martin was waiting in the hall with both hands in the pockets of his cardigan. He did not ask what the letter said. He walked me back to the lobby. It was 12:36 p.m. I had been in Harborstone Trust for more than 3 hours. When I turned my phone back on in the parking lot, it vibrated until my hand hurt. 19 missed calls from my mother. 5 from my father, 2 from Madison, 7 voicemails. The first, left at 9:08 a.m., was syrupy and fast. "Honey, maybe we all got emotional. Come back and we can talk this through." The fourth, left at 10:47 a.m., had no syrup left. "Natalie, if you went to the bank, you need to understand that whatever your grandfather had was family money. He was sick. He was confused at the end. Don't let strangers turn you against us." The sixth was Madison, 12 seconds long. So the video is getting a lot of attention and mom is freaking out. Call her. Also, maybe don't make this weird. The seventh was my mother whispering. Whatever they showed you, your grandfather was not himself. We can handle this privately. I deleted every voicemail. I drove to the Harbor Light Motor Lodge on the edge of town. It was $94 a night. I paid with a debit card tied to my flower shop wages. The clerk gave me room 214 and asked if I needed towels. I said no. In the room, I locked the door, sat on the bedspread and read Grandpa's letter again. Then I put it inside the green folder, turned off my phone, and slept for the first time in more than a day. The next morning at 7:22, I called the number Martin had written on a sticky note before I left the bank. Rebecca Langley, attorney at law, she answered on the second ring. Ms. Brooks, she said. Martin told me to expect you. Can you be here before 10? Her office was on the second floor of a yellow stone building on Harbor Avenue. A brass plaque beside the door read, Langley and Pierce, Estate and Property Law, established 1984. Rebecca Langley was 68, with silver hair pinned at the back of her neck and a black blazer over a cream blouse. She stood when I entered and took my hand in both of hers. You have Arthur's eyes, she said. She poured coffee from a glass press, set a plate of shortbread cookies in front of me and nudged the plate closer. Eat one before we talk. I ate one. Then she opened a green folder identical to Martin's. She had kept her own copy for nearly a decade. She had pulled it the night before after Martin called her at home. Your grandfather designed this arrangement for one possible moment, she said. Today we use it. She slid 2 documents across the desk. This is a 32-day notice to vacate, she said. Wisconsin treats people living in a property without a lease and without ownership as tenants at will, depending on the facts. Your parents, your sister, and Mr. Ramsey fit that category. We serve notice. If they leave, we are finished. If they do not, I file an eviction action in Bayfield County Circuit Court. She spoke with the calm of someone who had cleaned up family disasters for a long time. The hearing will be scheduled quickly. They have no lease, no ownership, no beneficial interest, no purchase agreement, no equity. A judge will grant possession. After that, there will be a short statutory period, and then the sheriff can execute the writ. She looked over her glasses. You do not have to argue with them, Ms. Brooks. You have to sign paper. The paper will do the arguing. She handed me a heavy blue pen. I signed. Rebecca warned me not to answer calls that came in angry or sweet. Both are attempts to move the matter from law into emotion, she said. Emotion is where they have trained you. Paper is where they have no leverage. She gave me copies of every signed page and told me to keep them in the folder, not in a loose pile, because people who rewrite history hate organized documents. There is no music when justice starts. Sometimes it is just a pen dragging across 2 pages on a cold weekday morning. Rebecca scanned the forms and sent them to a process server named Carla Jensen. Carla was 44, licensed across 4 counties, and wore a small body camera because she had been shouted at by enough people to stop trusting luck. Carla reached 742 Maple Hollow Lane at 10:26 a.m. on December 28. My mother opened the door in a black salon cape with foil clips across the top of her hair. She was coloring the hair of one of her Tuesday church friends at the kitchen table. She opened the door with her public smile in place. Carla returned a professional smile. Mrs. Brooks, I am serving a 32-day notice to vacate on behalf of the legal owner of this property. Service is effective today, December 28. My mother looked at the pages as if paper had betrayed her personally. This is ridiculous. You do not have to sign, Carla said. Service is complete. My mother tore the notice in half in the doorway. The church friend gasped behind her. Carla did not blink. That is fine, I have copies and my camera recorded service. Have a good morning. She walked back to her car. My mother stood in the doorway holding 2 halves of a document that said, near the bottom, on behalf of property owner Natalie June Brooks. In the next week, my mother sent Rebecca 21 emails, mailed 1 handwritten letter, and appeared twice at the office without an appointment. Rebecca answered all of it with 1 sentence. Mrs. Brooks, my client does not owe you a conversation. My mother hired a lawyer named Eric Morris from a strip mall office in Stonebridge. He had been practicing for 4 years. He read the trust. He read the deed. He read the title insurance policy. Then he called her. Mrs. Brooks, he said, according to the invoice notes Rebecca later obtained. You do not have a viable claim. You are not a beneficiary. You have no lease. The title is insured. My recommendation is that you vacate. His bill was $410. On February 1, 2027, because they were still in the house, Rebecca walked a filing packet and a $58 fee to the Bayfield County Courthouse and filed the eviction action. The hearing was set for February 9. My parents came without a lawyer. The judge was Monica Caldwell, black robe, 21 years on the bench. She read the deed. She read the trust certification. She looked at my parents for long enough that silence became its own sentence. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, she said, the ownership documents are clear. The owner seeks possession. The court grants judgment for possession. They were given until February 24 to leave. My mother tried to speak over the judge twice. The first time, Judge Caldwell lifted one hand and my mother stopped. The second time, the judge said, Mrs. Brooks, this courtroom is not your living room. My father stared at the table. Madison did not come. Blake did not come. The only thing sitting beside my parents was the stack of documents they had spent a month pretending did not matter. They did not appeal. The clerk stamped the judgment without drama. That sound, rubber on paper, was the closest thing to a door opening I had heard in years, finally. The writ was issued on February 21. Rebecca called me 2 days later while I was eating vending machine soup in room 214. The sheriff's office scheduled execution for Monday, February 24 at 10:45 a.m., she said. Deputy Reed will be there with a locksmith. You do not have to attend. I did not attend. I learned what happened the way thousands of strangers learned it, on a screen. My mother had spent the week before the lockout trying to interest local media in her version. North Coast 7 declined. WBLR 18 declined. A Family Values podcast host asked for documents, looked at them, and stopped returning calls. So my mother decided to broadcast it herself. She had no large account of her own, so she used Madison's. At 10:30 a.m., my mother sat on the leather couch in the living room of a house she did not own, wearing a white cardigan because she believed white made people look innocent. Madison set up the ring light. She checked her own face in the camera twice. Mom, Madison said, are you sure? My account just started recovering. My mother said, this is how people will finally hear our side. She went live at 10:33 with 16 viewers. She began crying before she spoke, which was a mistake. She never knew how to ration tears when she was the one holding the camera. My own daughter is doing this to us during the week of love, she said. It was February 24. It was not the week of anything. Viewers noticed immediately. Within 1 minute, there were 300 people watching. After 4 minutes, a few thousand. At 7 minutes, more than 10,000. Then she said the sentence that ruined the whole performance. After everything I sacrificed, she made me burn her stocking. She made me do it. The comments changed all at once. You burned her stocking? Why would a grown woman admit that? Wait, whose house is it? Where's the daughter? By 10:47, more than 50,000 people were watching. At 10:49, someone knocked on the front door. My mother brightened. That may be the news, she told the camera. Finally. She opened the door with Madison filming over her shoulder. Deputy Franklin Reed stood on the porch in a dark winter uniform, holding a clipboard. Behind him were another deputy and a locksmith with a tool bag. Mrs. Brooks, he said, I have a court-ordered writ of restitution from Bayfield County Circuit Court. It is time to vacate the property. My mother stared at him. This property belongs to Natalie June Brooks, he continued. Under the court order, you have 35 minutes to collect essential personal items. Anything left behind will be inventoried and made available for pickup through the sheriff's office. The comments exploded. Her daughter OWNSIT, this is cinema, protect Natalie. She tried to evict the owner. Madison's hand shook. The phone dipped. The stream cut for a second. When it came back, my mother had forgotten she was still live. My father stepped out from the kitchen. He had been sitting at the table all morning beside a mug of cold coffee. He walked past my mother, past the deputy, and out onto the porch. Sat down on the second step, placed his hands on his knees, and looked at the snow. No one spoke for several seconds. Then he said, quietly enough that it almost vanished, she owns the house. The phone caught it. He said it again louder. She always did. My mother turned toward him. For once, her face was not arranged. It was collapsing. Why are you not fighting for me? She asked. My father looked up at her from the porch step. Because what we did was wrong, he said. the live stream ended. Madison deleted her account within half a day. It was too late. Someone had clipped the porch moment, the part where my father said, "She always did." It spread across StreamX, Forum Hub, and every gossip page that liked a clean reversal. Within 2 days, millions had seen it. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Millstone, Wisconsin, 31 miles from Bayfield. It was above an insurance office in a converted Victorian. $1,520 a month, no fireplace. My mother had insisted she needed a fireplace. The market disagreed. When they moved into Grandpa's house in 2016, they had sold their old ranch in Willow Creek for $196,000. Years later, I learned from my Aunt Susan Parker where much of it had gone. $181,000 to Harbor Ridge preparatory tuition over the years, $24,000 to a salon space my mother leased and abandoned before opening, 3 trips to Atlantic City without me, and $9,500 into Blake Ramsey's failed athleticwear idea, which produced 0 shirts and 1 logo. By the lockout, they had $34,000 in joint checking and my father's retirement account, which he could not access without penalty for several more years. The apartment deposit took a painful bite out of what remained. My mother closed Grace at home with Paula 2 weeks later. Every old post had the same comments under it. "Where is Natalie? Did you burn the stocking? How do you charge rent to someone who owns the house?" Reverend Daniel Porter from her church called once. He did not yell. "Paula, the video has made it difficult for the congregation. Take some time." She never went back. Madison lost 5 sponsorships in 9 days: skincare, activewear, a smoothie subscription, a water bottle company, and a planner brand. One email leaked through someone who knew someone said, "We cannot align with the conduct displayed in the recent live stream." Blake ended things by text 5 days after the lockout. 11 words. "This is not the platform image I am building. I'm out." He unfollowed Madison everywhere before lunch. By April, Madison was sleeping on my parents' pull-out couch in Millstone. Her new account had fewer than 5,000 followers. For the first month, she did not speak to my mother unless she had to. On March 12, my mother texted me, "We did the best we could. Someday you'll see that." I did not answer. On March 29, my father sent a longer message. It was the first time he had ever written to me without my mother pushing from behind him. "Natalie, you do not owe me a reply. I am writing because I owe you the words." I should have stopped her many times. I did not. I have spent my life being a man who lets things happen and calls that peace. I know now what it cost you. I am sorry. Not because I expect anything from you, because it is true. Dad, I read it 12 times. I did not answer. I did not delete it either. On April 5, a little more than 3 months after the morning my stocking burned, I drove my old sedan up Maple Hollow Lane. Snow had pulled back from the lawn, but the air still had winter inside it. Deputy Franklin Reed waited on the porch with a new set of keys on a brass ring. "Welcome home, Ms. Brooks," he said. I had cried plenty since Christmas. I did not cry then. I shook his hand, took the keys, and waited until he drove away. Then I pulled Grandpa's original brass key from my pocket, the one he had carried for 46 years, and unlocked the front door. The living room was empty. My family had taken everything they believed belonged to them. The fireplace was cold and swept clean. The floors Grandpa had laid in 1974 were still there. Beneath the stale smell of boxes and cleaning spray, cedar remained. I set the walnut box on the mantel. A week later, I climbed the attic ladder with a flashlight. I had not been up there since I was a teenager. The attic smelled of dust and dry pine. In the far corner, tucked under the eaves, sat a cardboard box I did not recognize. On the side, in Grandpa's handwriting, was 1 word and 1 year: Natalie, 2021. I pulled it toward me and opened it on the floorboards. Inside was a Christmas stocking made of soft cream wool. My name was stitched along the cuff in red thread, uneven in places, the way embroidery looks when an old man with unsteady hands teaches himself in secret. On the inside seam, he had stitched 4 small letters: OB 2021. Beneath it were 4 smaller walnut boxes, each built like the first, with dovetailed corners and cherry inlay around the lids. Backups. 4 more places to put a key if the first one ever failed me. I sat in the attic holding the stocking against my chest, and this time I cried without covering my mouth. Nobody was downstairs waiting to use it against me. When I could stand, I carried the stocking down to the living room. I hung it on the mantel above the cold fireplace. Then I moved Grandpa's workbench out from the corner, laid his chisels in size order, and tied on the leather apron with the crescent burn. Before dark, I walked to the front door. I opened it, looked once at the empty road, then closed it gently all the way.